Blessings. What are they? What are blessings? Why do we feel the urge to have some sort of difference of understanding behind something good that happens to us? Why is it that we choose to believe that when something good happens to us, there's someone else at play? There's someone else in the background looking, making things go the right way for us, making things happen to us that are desirable or positive, right? Why is it that we believe that? Well, if you ask me, this is something I've been pondering on for quite some time. I believe religion, spirituality more so, is something that we have uh, came into contact with and begin to understand from the beginning of time. Now, I'm not a very historically understanding, or should I say, historical date knowing person, but I know that as humans, we've been here for millions of years. I know that, obviously 2,000 years ago was before Christ, so on and below, all that kind of good stuff. Uh, what I'm trying to say here is that what I want to bring to attention is the idea, the understanding that faith, faith in the unknown. Imagine living in a time where you don't have many resources. Like, and I don't mean like no resources as of right now, where you can still get like a government assisted phone, you can still get government assisted food, so on and so forth. No, I mean like no resources. We're talking about like living in the hardest places there are to live in the world right now. Still, maybe places in Africa, in Asia, places in the South America, right? Wherever it is, the third world countries that are getting more help nowadays, thankfully, and finding new ways to innovate there. Imagine that 100 years ago. Imagine 1,000. Imagine 2,000 years ago. Imagine at any point before now, especially way back in the day, what it would take to be resourceful. What it would take mentally, emotionally, to put yourself above what you're going through in that moment and look at something new, right? What I'm trying to say is look at something that can't be seen. What is it to say that religion, spirituality as a whole, came about as we looked inward to move forward on the outside in the right way? What is it to say that we had tragedies, tons of terrible things going on, right? Hard living, let's say, no resources. How does one make it through that with a smile? How does one not only make it through it, but create something from it? Well, you could simply say that, well, things are hard. Someone's got to look up above and make something different, and I would agree with you. But I think there's reason to believe that the reason we have came into contact with a higher spiritual being is that our animal minds have trouble dealing with constant stress and fatigue. Chronic stress will kill and does kill and shortens lifespans very much so. So what is it to say that back in the day, people will still die from chronic stress nowadays? In fact, probably more than ever. But, well, let me not say that. Back in the day, where things are 1,000 times as stressful as they are now, survivalistically, we can imagine, again, because of no resources, it's easy to assume that we struggled as humans, and we needed something greater. We needed something that would help us see the unknown and go into the unknown. Because think about it nowadays as it is. We all live in pits of mediocrity, let's just say. We end up in the job we don't like, surrounded by people we don't like, doing things we don't like, just to support our family that we kind of love. And now I know you probably love your family. I'm not saying that you don't. What I'm saying is that you probably still find problems with them, and don't get me wrong, nobody's perfect. But when we fall into these pits of mediocrity, it's very uncommon to have a lot of gratitude. And now, look, when I say mediocrity, I don't mean you have to be some exorbitant, crazy money making person. That's not success to me. Success is just believing in whatever it is that you're doing and being successful in achieving that thing. The progressive realization of a worthy ideal, right? So you can make no money, but do what you're called to do and be successful in my eyes. But, anyways, back to my point. We fall into these pits of mediocrity and we struggle to ever look outside of those. Even though we may hate our situation, it's comfortable. And so we don't look at what's possible on the outside of it because that would be uncomfortable. We don't go into the unknown. We don't see these realities as one and the same. We think that what we're used to is all that's possible for us. In fact, that's what we like to think because it gives us a little bit of slack. It takes us off the burner. It gives us some space in between ourselves and the facts of this reality that we don't like, being that we created it and nobody else did, and that it's our fault. That's the accountable position to be in. And once you start to take that position and says, okay, this is my reality for my own fault, that's when you can start seeing other realities, and the doors open up to infinite possibilities. But it all starts in the mind. It all starts with the ability to see things a little bit different. And that is where I'm drawing back into spirituality. Spirituality and seeing things that are unseen. Seeing things with faith. You see, when you're stuck in this mindset, you're stuck in the pit of mediocrity, you're stuck in this place where you don't really want to be, but you don't know how to get out of it. You have faith that that's all there is for you. You have a subconscious belief, a paradigm, a self-fulfilling prophecy around this concept of self. All of this ties you to this reality, this version of you. It ties you to it. It's chains. It's a prison of the own mind, one's own mind. We have faith and a belief that that's what we're meant to have, and so that's what we continue to live within. And now, let me remind you, when I say we choose to live within it, I'm not saying this is a conscious act. This is a subconscious act. It is deep in the back part of your brain. It is the lower part of the iceberg that is 90% of the weight. You see the top 10%. You see surface level until you really dig in. And you start to really study yourself. As you learn about yourself, as you learn about your trauma, the things you went through, the things that you learned and picked up on, that is your subconscious. That is your paradigm. That is your belief set. That is what you have faith in. You see, but we go through life in all these different ways, and we between the environments we're in, the people we're around, the things we do, we form what I like to call, and what I've been understanding recently, what I call devil ties. Now, before you even take it into a spiritual concept, a devil tie is very simple to understand. A devil tie is something that we are emotionally drawn to that ties us to the physical reality, that ties us to a certain physical reality, meaning a certain understanding and perception of life as it is. So what that means is that when you have a devil tie to something that you do not like, what it always is you have a devil tie to something that is not good for you. You have something that harms you, right? You believe that money is evil, let's say. Now, money is simply a tool, and it just magnifies who you are. So the people that are evil, they've just been magnified because, anyways, if you have this belief that money is evil because of something from your childhood, some rich man stepped on you as a kid, somebody pushed you over, somebody robbed you, whatever it is, the banks robbed you, whatever it is, that belief is not supporting you. That belief is just something you've learned and you have an emotional tie to. Because you could show that same person with this belief all the logistical facts behind money and its roots and its power and whatever you want to say. You can say all the logistical side of it, but what would that person still say? They will still say money is evil. Because you can't tell someone how to feel. Someone has to feel their way into how they feel. Right? So again, to tie this back in, we have faith in this other reality, even though we might not and fully enjoy it. We may hate the fact that money is evil, but we believe it so strongly, we've convinced ourselves of it, and we've seen so many things that we've created, we've manifested by our own perception, our own beliefs, that has to be the reality. That's the devil tie. the unhealed emotional self that has ties to something in the flesh world that isn't necessarily true. In most cases, it's actually very incorrect and formed from emotion that only continues to harm you in one way or another. But as you go through that process of transmuting yourself, you go into that process of learning about your subconscious, observing it, studying it, breaking through the patterns, the blueprints. As you break through these things and you see them as they are and you heal that trauma and you release that energy, that is when your heart is then led by the right source. As you get through that process, as you fall into that process. Right? You see, for me, I started this journey of self-development and financial pursuit purely financially based. I was pushed into that decision by my situation, my circumstances. I knew that I wanted to make things differently. So what did I do? I went after it in every way I knew how to. Financially based. I failed and failed and failed and failed and failed and failed and failed again. But I kept on. And what it did was it allowed me to remove, and I didn't know I was doing this. Again, this was a conscious, that I was consciously making decisions that helped me start to run through this process on the subconscious side. Now, mind you, I did start learning about the subconscious very early on, around 18, at the start of all this process, by my own conscious decision. But as I started to work through that, I saw a lot of ugly. Thankfully, when I started that journey, I started in the kind of accountable position. So that means whenever I failed, I looked at myself. I didn't look at anybody else. I said, dang, I just failed again. That sucks. And I felt it a little bit. But what I didn't do was blame it on somebody else. I actually took all the blame. Now, mind you, I'm a natural blame taker by hereditary in the way I was raised. So that's something that I work on the other side and when it comes to interpersonal relationships, right? But when it comes to being accountable for my decisions, it helped me in that way when I finally took that position of being accountable. So anyways, back to my point, I started to have faith in the process, that faith in my own transformation, in transcendence of my lower self. I had faith in a reality that I hadn't necessarily experienced yet. I knew there was something over here. I knew that there was something different than what I was already experiencing. So what did I do? I started to work on this stuff. I shifted my mind over here. I said, okay, how do I think differently? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? I need to get uncomfortable. That's what it is. I need to get uncomfortable. I need to look at a little bit more of this reality. I need to look a little bit more of this reality. I need to look a little bit more of this reality. And over time, you get more used to those uncomfortable realities. And you start to question more and more of your normal reality, what you do feel comfortable within. And as you question it, you really start to see things as they are. You start to see the ugly in your ways. You start to see the devil in your ties. Now, at this point, as you go through this process, it gets ugly much of the time. Again, you're failing or struggling in one way or another, and you have to look at yourself. You have to look at yourself and see what it is that you're holding yourself back from. And that takes time. It takes emotional resilience to look through the ugly and see who you really are. But let me tell you something, brother. There's nothing that's ever more worthwhile in your fucking life. You know why? Because you're not meant to have devil ties. You're not meant to have negative beliefs and self-fulfilling prophecies that turn you into the most ugly person you can imagine, or at least waste your potential. You're meant to be more. You're meant to look up in the sky and see that you can go there, you can go anywhere. You're meant to have a light heart that holds no weight to it and allows life to be a mirror of positivity, of positive reflection, of great living. You're meant to be someone who has a purpose in life, who moves towards that purpose, who isn't distracted at all ends. Someone who has a positive paradigm, who moves forward righteously. That is faith. That is what we've developed as humans through adaptation over millions of years. Once again, back to the beginning of the story, when we're low on resources and life is hell on earth compared to right now, because it's all survivally based, what is it that develops within the mind that gives us the capacity to see things greater than what they currently are, to see things differently? What is it that gives us that capacity, my friend? Faith. Faith in the unknown. Faith isn't necessarily religious. Faith is a spiritual concept. And as you develop your mind and you wrap yourself around the concept of faith, you begin to see things in a different way. So, my friends, if there's something you take from this, it's that you must have faith in yourself. You must have faith in a new reality for you. You must begin to work on yourself and look at the ugly sides of you and see those subconscious beliefs, the paradigms that aren't pretty. And you must begin to work through those things. You must relieve yourself of the devil ties. And I promise you, brother, those things may feel comfortable. They may feel so much like you that you just can't let go of it. But it's not you. It's not. You're meant to be light and air. You're meant to move with the wind. Stand on integrity. Stand on the rightful living ways of beings that you know. But your heart is meant to be led by purpose, purposeful action, love, abundance, prosperity, joy. No matter who you are, no matter what your job is, you can find this sense. You can find this grateful state, and you can remain in it. You can make this your home. But it starts with looking at yourself and removing the devil within. Guys, let me know what you think about this. Have an amazing day. Let's go.